Now, if you were listening earlier, you'll have heard Greater Manchester's Police and Crime Commissioner claim that the Home Office doesn't understand the demands of modern policing.
It comes as a report by a committee of MPs warns that cuts to police funding will have consequences that the government can't foresee. Tony Lloyd says that the public are already feeling the impact of the cuts that GMP has undergone.
The problem is the police do a lot more, and the public wants the police to do a lot more than dealing with crime, important though that is. Being burgled is rotten, but actually when your mum with dementia is wandering the streets at 3 a.m, that's pretty rotten as well. So the complexity of the things we expect modern policing to do is real, and the Home Office simply seems to fail to understand that, which is why we've lost something over 1,500 police officers since David Cameron walked into St Downing Street. It's too many.
The Public Accounts Committee report reveals just 22% of emergency calls to the police are actually crime-related, and yet forces are judged on how they tackle crime. The committee also says there's no data on how forces are plugging the gaps that other services, like social services, should be providing, reflected there in Tony Lloyd's comments. Well, Josh Loeb is the senior reporter at the Police Oracle magazine, which is a publication for rank-and-file officers. Josh, because of your job, you speak to officers on a daily basis. What are they saying to you?
Well, Alison, they are... I, myself and my fellow reporters here at Police Oracle speak daily to officers of all ranks, and... it's not a nice picture really out there. They are frankly despondent. Many of them can't wait to leave the job because they say they've never been busier, their workloads are higher than ever, and they're very stressed out. So the content of this report, I think, will not come as much of a surprise to them.
Morale's low, then?
Yes, I think it is. I mean, police officers have a can-do attitude, and they are sort of famous for rising to the challenge, but they don't have much faith in the Home Office, frankly. And I think definitely in your neck of the woods in Manchester, I mean, Tony Lloyd, I heard him use the word rotten. I mean, Manchester has had a particularly rotten deal from the Home Office, losing so many officers for a city of its size. And, the Home Office used to just glibly say, whenever anyone raised an eyebrow about the costs of the cuts, by which I mean the costs to public safety, well, crime is down. But in Manchester, it is definitely not down anymore. It rose by about 10% overall last year, and I think violent crime was up by 40%. So crime is now rising again, and as Tony Lloyd rightly said, police also do a lot more than just deal with crime. Yeah.
Do you find that officers would rather be chasing criminals than doing a lot of what is described as social work that the police are being forced to do?
Yes, I really think they would rather do that. I mean, that is why most of them went into the job, frankly, and that is the core responsibility of the police. I mean, the whole role of the police has changed massively over the past 5 years, in part because of spending cuts, and in part because of just phenomena that were happening before. But the police now deal with, searches for missing persons with dementia, some old biddy who's wandered off from a nursing home, and they will deal with mental health.
I mean, it is right that they do that. I mean, a person with mental health problems needs finding, and they can call on the police needs, as much as anybody else.
I mean, absolutely. I'm not diminishing that. They obviously, this is public protection, and this is a whole key part of the police's role. But it's much more difficult, frankly. It's much more complex, and it's probably more resource intensive to deal with those issues because they are so evaluative. I mean, catching criminals and investigating crime is actually quite a simple matter as compared with, making an assessment about a child's vulnerability in the future because of sending text messages to someone, which police have to do in schools if they're called in to deal with cases where someone sent an indecent image, or evaluating someone's risk to becoming a victim of extremism. These sort of things are very, very complicated.
I know, but Josh, I mean, if you've just termed an old person as a biddy, is that a reflection of what the police are referring to?
Well, no, I mean, they wouldn't. I mean, I'm a hack, so I sort of use this kind of language. But I think they do. I think there is a lot of frustration frustration that, for example, in the case of nursing homes, I mean, your chief constable, current chief constable, Sir Peter Fahey, who's soon to be replaced actually by Ian Hopkins, has said this himself. The nursing homes need to beef up their own security because they can't expect the police to go and search for everyone, an old lady or indeed an old man who has wandered off because they have dementia, and they need to do more themselves. They can't just expect the police to pick up the pieces.
What would happen if the police stopped doing these kinds of jobs, though?
Well, I think there would be, it would not be good, would it? But in my view, I'm increasingly coming to the view that we cannot expect the police to do everything, and we cannot expect the police to get involved in so many areas that actually don't have anything to do with crime. We should expect them simply to do what they were set up to do, which is to enforce the laws of the land, to catch criminals, to uphold order, and issues to do with public protection.
But Mike
Penning,
Penning,
should still be involved, but it's a wider issue.
The Minister for Policing, Mike Penning, says that public confidence in the last 5 years has gone up in the police, and crime has fallen by more than a quarter over the past 5 years. So they're managing.
Yeah, well, I mean, they do sort of parrot this line. They say it over and over again as if, just saying it will make it true. I mean, in Manchester, I know crime...
Why is it not?
Well, in Manchester, I don't think it is true that crime has fallen year on year anymore, and they've stopped saying that, at least with regards to Manchester, because in Manchester, crime overall, police recorded crime rose by 10% overall last year. And violent crime was up by, I think, 40%. So you have had a crime rise in Manchester. And as I say, just saying, okay, the number of crimes has fallen also doesn't really give an indication of the scale of what police have to deal with, because they may be dealing with a smaller number of crimes, but those crimes may be more complex and may require more officers. So, again, it's...
Just finally, Tony Lloyd discounted it when I suggested that a reflection of what is happening in Greater Manchester Police is illustrated when only 2 people applied for that top job to replace Sir Peter Fahey. 2 people? Is that my naivety in thinking it is an incredibly minuscule amount of people interested in one of the top policing jobs in the UK?
Yeah, well, I mean, it does seem quite small, you're right. I think the problem is, that we've, in many policing areas actually in the country, there's been just one applicant for the top role. So actually, in Manchester, you've had more, but the reason that the numbers are so small, I think, are because the job description is very tightly defined, and only officers of a certain rank can apply. And often, if an officer, say from London, a sort of high-ranking, assistant chief or whatever, applies, that will mean uprooting themselves and their families and moving up north, which, as wonderful as Manchester is as a city, they may not want to have that upheaval. So, I mean, this is part of the landscape of policing that I think needs to change, because you do need to have a wider pool of applicants, certainly.
All right, Josh Loeb, interesting to talk to you. Thank you, from the Police Oracle magazine.